It's EddieTrunk. We are live on Sirius XM, The Boneyard. It is an honor to welcome in a man that has long been one of my all-time favorite musicians and songwriters on the planet, the one and only Billy Squier. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Thank you.
It's been long time coming.
Been too long, as I've been saying to you off the air. My fanship, is that a word?
It is now.
It is now.
We know what you mean.
But the importance of your career on my career, I don't know if you've ever even known this, but it means the world to me that you're here and that we finally have this opportunity to talk, because actually the album that you're celebrating the 30th anniversary of, Don't Say No, was the first record I ever played on the radio in my life when I was in high school.
Good choice.
Yeah, and it wasn't by design, it just came in the mail. Trust me, I wish I could tell you it was some great design.
Timing is everything.
Right, but I remember queuing that up. And you were the first artist, technically, that I ever saw play live in my life. And the reason why is my first ever concert was Kiss, December 16th, 1977 at Madison Square Garden.
And who was opening for Kiss on that evening?
You and a band called
We'll take the third
Piper.
caller. Oh, too late.
And let me tell you something. It was something to this day. Clearly, I went as a Kiss fan like everybody, but you guys coming out, it was the first time I had ever witnessed a rock show at all, let alone in a place like Madison Square Garden. And I remember being moved by the fact that the biggest thing that struck me as a 15-year-old kid sitting there was, how can they make those guitars sound so loud that even up in the blue heaven of the garden I could hear them? I had no concept of the amplification.
Yeah, well,
process.
we had a great sound man too, and he had his mandate to turn it up from me. I've been told that we were actually louder than Kiss, which is hard for me to imagine. But there have been people who said that that we had that much going for us. Which, I mean, volume is a big element of rock and roll to me. You want to feel it. The problem is that you don't want to take people's heads off, and depending, obviously on how you EQ your desk and all, you can really hurt people. But if it's loud and you do it right, which is what I like to think we do,
yeah,
then it works, and then you take it as far as you can.
Well, there is so much to cover and to talk about, and of course, the thing that fans should know first and foremost before we start at the beginning in my discussion here with Billy is that the album that is your landmark breakthrough album, your second solo album, your fourth album, in my opinion, is Don't Say No. To most people, it was your first album, actually.
I think that's true.
That's going to celebrate its 30th anniversary, technically next year. April, is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
April of 81, it came out originally.
I think 30 sounded better than 29 to the record company, and they did it. And,
right.
I didn't know that they were doing that, and when it came out and I saw the sticker, it's like, well, who cares? Hopefully it will still be out next year, and it will be the 30th anniversary.
Right. Most bands do it a little after. You've actually jumped the gun, so you have a little lifeline with this to keep going and talking about it.
I like to be ahead of the curve.
And I say that it's your fourth album because I mentioned Piper, and I am an enormous fan of those two Piper albums. Still to this day, two of my favorite records. And then recently, your first solo album, Tale of the Tape, was reissued in England, which I have a copy of.
That's true, too.
And
you're well informed.
That album is equally phenomenal, and I've, especially listening to this reissue, I'm so into that record. But to most people, Don't Say No really was the emergence of Billy Squier, wasn't it?
It was, that's true.
And do you feel, looking back on that album, even though to most people it was your debut, and even though it really, I think, is, if you count the Piper albums, which you wrote all those songs as well, is the fourth album in your recorded history, do you feel the importance for that particular album as other people do?
I do, in a different way, but I mean, it was absolutely the record that I had wanted or had been spending my whole life trying to make. I mean, it was, I remember, it felt like it was really the culmination of everything I had done up to then. And it felt that it was the absolute best thing I could do. I remember when I finished Don't Say No, I said to people, if this record is not a hit, I quit.
And you were serious about that?
Well, who knows if it?
Right.
I meant it when I said it,
right.
and it wasn't a cavalier thing that I set up to say after it was already successful. But I remember feeling that good about it and that positive about it. and really, actually, I think there was a point in time when that record was done before it came out that it blew me away too, and so I just felt like if people don't get this, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
And fortunately, I didn't have to walk that road because it worked. But no, I mean, in that way, it was incredibly important, and I knew it when I did it. I mean, I knew it from what I felt about it. As a writer and as a player and the way it sounded, getting Mac in to do it. I mean, I knew from the Queen, the records that Mac had done with Queen, which basically was The Game and a couple of singles. I could hear the way the Queen sound changed, on the record.
Mac was the guy who co-produced Don't Say No with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Mac used to work with Jeff Lynne, did the ELO records, and worked with Giorgio Marotter and did a lot of stuff out of Musicland.
It's funny you say that because there was a rumor. I was working in a record store when Don't Say No came out, and there was a rumor that Mac, who produced, went on it. He did Emotions, right, as well.
Yep.
That Mac was actually Giorgio Marotter's production name from when he did Rock. There was a rumor that they were the same people, at least back when I was a kid, but clearly that's not the case.
No, Giorgio actually, that's a whole other story. But Giorgio doesn't spend a lot of time in the studio from the experiences I've had with him. He gets people like Mac, and he finds people who he knows can do what he hears and what he wants, and he puts them on the path, and then he goes to lunch. He comes back, and we do the work.
As I've heard Rick Rubin works like that,
He's
too.
brilliant. No, Giorgio is brilliant, but I mean, I am digressing a little bit, but when I did the Metropolis soundtrack with him, that's what happened. He came into Musicland with a little demo, said, want to be a part of this? Freddie's doing it and everything. I said, sure, let me hear it. And so we took this little demo and made it into a record, and I did put some drums on it and guitar and this and that sort of thing. And Mac and I did our thing. It was while we were doing Emotions, we were finishing it up. So we did it. Okay, Giorgio says, why don't you come to L.A.? I guess I was going to be out. I was bringing the record out to L.A. or something. So he said, well, when you come out, bring the track and we'll mix it to my studio. I said, okay, great. I'm going to work with Giorgio. Cool, it'll be interesting. So
we should tell my audience real quick before you continue to just jump in who Giorgio Marotter is, because this being a hard rock channel, it's not a name that's going to come up a lot, but he is a renowned producer of dance records,
that's right, yeah.
Donna Summer, am I correct?
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I can't even go through the whole...
But he's known completely for the dance disco scene.
Yeah.
So
and it was hugely successful.
Just so people understand the dynamic of you doing that with him. Go ahead.
It was hugely successful. And, and a lot of dance records had cool sounds and cool beats and rhythms and things like that too. So there, to me, it was an interesting thing to say. Let's see what rubs off from Giorgio. So I go to L.A. and he says, "I've just opened a restaurant. Come and have lunch, and we'll go to the studio." So, okay, fine. So we go and have lunch. Nice place in Beverly Hills, and drive up to his studio, and he introduces me to his engineer, and the track is up. And he says, I gotta go do something. I'll be back in an hour or whatever. Just go ahead and work. So the engineer and I 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours later or whatever, we're still mixing, we basically have the track up. It's done, and we're waiting for Giorgio. And he comes in, we play it for him, and he listens and he goes, just a little more bass. And he walks out. That was all I got. So what I learned from Giorgio was that he liked what Billy Squier did from the record, from Don't Say No.
Right.
He knew Mac very well. He liked what Mac did. So he believed that we would, he would give us this song.
And Mac was an engineer for him?
Yeah, Mac was his engineer.
His engineer.
Yeah. So he believed that, the combination of Mac and Billy was going to give him something good. So he brought us this track, and we did it. And then he felt that the engineer who he had in L.A. working for him knew what he wanted and would do it. And so he didn't have to do anything. I mean, he just made brilliant choices of putting the right people together, and then he, like I said, he just went off and did whatever he wanted to do.
But you're talking about that at the time when you did a song for the soundtrack to Metropolis, which was years after Don't Say No. It
was in Emotions. It was at the end of Emotions and Motion.
Okay, so how did you, because the evolution, well, let's start at the beginning. For people that don't know, Billy's first band that put out recorded music, you had bands prior to Piper, but your first band was Piper, A&M Records, 77, 78, Can't Wait? Were those the two?
I think it was 76, 77, actually.
Okay, so mid-70s,
You're
mid
in
to
the
late
bump, yeah.
70s. Piper was a 3-guitar band, which
No keyboards. That was
no-
my thing. I wanted Fleetwood Mac again. With the 3-guitar onslaught.
Again, picture me. I mean, here I am. You want to talk about shaping my world. I'm going to see Kiss. I don't know who the opening band is. And I sit down, and this band comes out loud as hell with 3 guitars, and that was my first ever live rock experience. And it just, from that moment, and then Kiss
Changed
comes
my
out
life.
and blows everything up. And I walked out of Madison Square Garden that night, and it was like, this is the ultimate.
This is it.
And I went and got the Piper records, and to this day, cherish those records. I went so crazy to get them. Now, they have been, I finally got this, which I'm sure you've seen.
I have one.
2-on-1, Piper and Can't Wait on the same CD. It came out a year or two ago. But for years, these albums not available in America
That's
on
right.
CD. I even went and hunted down Japanese imports like 10 years ago because I was so consumed with getting these albums on CD. But give everybody, because I want to go chronologically if we can, starting with Piper, the origins of Piper and how that kind of, because I want people to see how that kind of shaped what led up to Don't Say No.
Well, Piper really came about through the good graces and vision, I guess, support of Bill Aucoin,
Who recently
passed away.
Yeah.
But Bill was Kiss's manager, for those of you out there who don't know that. And I actually met Bill at the record plant in New York on an Aerosmith date. I've been friends with Aerosmith for a long time. By the way,
Oh yeah,
Roll
Chip
Away the Stone was written by Richie Super,
Right.
good friend of Steven Tyler's and someone I've known for quite a while. And of course, and you know that the Boneyard, your
The Joe
show,
Studio.
is the name of Joe
Yeah.
Perry's studio. And I'm going to Dallas tomorrow to see Aerosmith. So I don't know. This is a big Aerosmith
Very
moment
strange.
here. And
Send my best to Joe. He's been
I
here
will.
many times,
I
and
will.
I've been to the Boneyard. Actually, I've been to his place. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I met Bill at record plant, and Bill had wanted to actually manage a band I had called the Sidewinders in Boston, which was a kind of just under the radar pop band who was kind of a critic's darling, but never really quite got it together. But Bill had wanted to manage us and take us to Casablanca, and it didn't quite happen. So I had met him previously. Then I saw him. I was down in New York. I was at the record plant. He came in. I said hi to him, whatever. A day or two later, I was going back to Boston, and I got on an airplane, and who was on the plane? Bill Aucoin. So we started talking. It's like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then, and he said, because he had liked me in the other band, he was interested. What are you doing? So I sent him some demos or something that I'd been doing, songs and stuff like that. And he said, if you want to move to New York, we'll get you a band.
You were based in Boston at this
I was
point.
living in Boston. He said,
Right.
how do you feel about putting a band together? Or I want to do something with you. And I said, I want to have a band. And he said, I will do it.
Right.
So, because I wasn't thinking about being a solo artist. I wanted to be in a band. It's the gang you never have when you're a kid. I wanted to belong.
Right, and you had 2 bands prior to Piper that never really got off the launching pad. So,
Maybe more than that.
but 2 that are documented.
Yeah.
Magic Terry
Yep.
and the Sidewinders.
Yeah.
Right.
But I've been a loner my whole life. So for me, I wanted to be in a band. That was kind of my goal. So that's why we made a band called Piper. But I mean, I picked the people for the band. I wrote all the songs. It was a veiled solo effort, but with very good people around, and it sounded like a band. It was a band, but it was really my first concentrated effort. And I had left the Sidewinders actually to do that. I felt like I felt that I was good enough to shoulder the responsibility, rather than feel that maybe I didn't want to be in a band where someone else in the band was compromising my chances of success.
Right.
And I just felt, I was really dedicated to what I was doing.
It was going to sink or swim on your shoulders, more or less.
I just felt, I can't let anybody get in my way about this. I gotta take on whatever I can to make it as good as it can be. So Piper was the first, real stab at that, and Bill made it happen. Bill supported us, and we got a deal pretty fast, and made those records, and then I felt that it was. I sensed that there were factions in the band who wanted to have more input. Who wanted to be contributing songs and making it more.
Wanted it to be a real band dynamic.
Yeah, and
right.
and again, while I could appreciate that, I didn't feel that those factions were up to where I was. And I felt that it would have been a compromise for me, say, to do a record and give away 3 songs to someone else, or at that point in time.
Right.
So I just stopped it. I said, then I felt the light kind of went on, and I said, got to be a solo artist.
How successful? 2 albums, as we said, from Piper. The self-titled album, and then the second one was called Can't Wait. Having been a kid then, and just seeing the band live and everything, and by the time I kind of really got into the records, Piper was done already. But how successful was Piper at the period where you guys were active? I know you opened for Kiss and some other bands, but did you get where there was some close shots? You didn't really break, but did you get close to breaking?
Yeah, but I mean, what is close? You make it or you don't. No, we were close. I mean, we got decent radio play. We got a lot of good reviews. A lot of coverage. We did a couple of tours. We played a lot of good dates. We were good. It just didn't quite happen.
How do you feel looking back on those 2 records now? Do you like them?
I really like Can't Wait. And it's interesting because a lot of people I know like the first one better, but it's very subjective, stuff like this. I felt that the first record didn't get made properly. I mean, I felt that there are troubles with the production and the sound and things like that it didn't, and maybe because it was the first one and it didn't feel quite comfortable, that there were good songs, but I always felt that it wasn't quite settled in. And when we made Can't Wait, one of the people who was one of Bill's artistic geniuses was a guy named Sean Delaney, who also came out like Giorgio. It was a lot of disco and dance kind of vibe. But
and Sean Delaney was also very instrumental in Kiss. The choreography.
He did the choreography. He did that.
Right.
Yeah, he did that. But and Sean was a wild man. I mean, anything that could put in the system went in there, and quite a crazy guy, but very creative. And Bill asked me, he said, "What do you think about working with Sean?" Sean and I didn't even get along. I mean, we were from other planets, kind of, in a lot of ways. But, I respected Bill. I said, okay, let's try it. It was great. And we had a creative partnership that was terrific. And what I'm getting at is when we made Can't Wait, I listened to Can't Wait. I think the first side of Can't Wait is as good a side as you get. I mean, I think it's right through it. I listen to it and I feel like, yeah, man, that's it. This is good stuff. And I remember Little Miss Intent, which is on there. I think it's track 4, maybe.
You got it, track 4, yeah.
When we did that song, that was the first song I ever recorded where I felt I'm where I want to be as a singer now. That was an example I can remember. I just felt like, now this is it. Now I sound like a real singer. And there were moments like that on Can't Wait, where in a way that was kind of a milestone record for me, although it wasn't, a huge success. But I was a step closer. I was getting the vibe. I was figuring out what it was that made these things work.
See, it's interesting hearing from your perspective, the creator and the writer of this stuff, because as a fan, it's hard for me. It would be impossible for me. I guess, gun to my head, I'd lean slightly towards the first album in terms of which, if I had to pick a favorite, slightly. But then again, I mean, I can honestly say to you, this disc I'm looking at again is the 2 Piper albums on one disc. There's 18 total songs when you put both records on one disc. And I honestly, there is not 1 second of one moment of one of these songs that I don't love. Of course, there's a cover on here. The last time, the Stones cover.
Yeah.
But outside of that, of your songs on this thing, I mean, I listen to these records still like they just came out, and the songs, the dueling guitars, I mean, it's so right up my alley. I love everything about it, and before we go on, I mean, because probably a lot of people listening don't know Piper.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I would love to play before we continue, and then we'll move to where we're going with Don't Say No. But I'd love to play something from one of the Piper records for people.
Okay.
Do you want to play Little Miss Intent, since you said that was kind of your defining moment?
I'm very happy with that song. If it's okay with you, we can play that.
Like I said, you can't pick it. There's not a dud on here. I mean, I would sit here and track the whole record as far as I'm concerned, but we can't. We don't
then
have
you'd
the
be
time
losing
for that.
valuable time.
Sail away, Billy. Sail away. 42nd Street. Oh, goes on and on. Coming down off your love. Oh. It's endless.
You got me. You're killing me here.
This we got to do this. Billy said since Billy set this one up to some degree, let's do Little Miss Intent. This is from the second Piper album. And again, we should mention you can get these albums now for the first time ever on CD in America. What was this? 2008 these came out?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So check.
What label is it on?
American Beat
Records.
American
Beat. Yeah, they've been re-releasing a bunch of my stuff, actually.
Through Universal.
So we thank them for that.
Yeah, it's through Universal. So let's just give you a little peek, if you're not aware of Billy prior to Billy's solo with his band Piper, which again, as we said, for the most part, different musicians on the record, but Billy wrote all this stuff and was very much the focal point of this band. And these records, interestingly enough, after you broke as a solo artist working in a record store, I remember them being reissued on A&M under the Piper logo.
How about that?
Featuring Billy Squier burned into the art.
And what was the front cover of the Piper record? It was switched to the back cover became the front, because the back cover was the picture of me.
Right, exactly. So
how subtle.
Typical record company action there. The album suddenly got new life when Billy broke a couple albums later, which we'll talk about after we do this one. Little Miss Intent from the second Piper album, Can't Wait, featuring, of course, the great Billy Squier, who was live in the studio with me. This is EddieTrunk Live, Sirius XM, The Boneyard.